Hello, my name is Vera Lane. I am 32 years old. I am an actress. I live on West 54th Street in New York City. And every Tuesday morning, I sit at this corner table at Manny's coffee shop and drink a coffee that I did not have to order because Rita, who runs this place and who has the specific superpower of knowing what everyone wants before they ask, simply brings it. It is October 1947. And I want to tell you what that is like from the inside. Not from the outside, from the inside. Not the history book version, where everything is already finished and labeled and organized into chapters called things like the post-war period, and the beginning of the Cold War, and the baby boom. Those labels are correct and completely useless for understanding what it is actually like to be alive right now. In this specific October, in this specific coffee shop, with this specific coffee. From the outside, 1947 is black and white. From the inside, the geranium in my window is extremely red. Let me tell you where we are. Geographically, New York City, specifically Midtown Manhattan, West 54th Street, which sits between Broadway and 8th Avenue, which is, I will be honest, not the most glamorous block in the city, but which has a bakery that produces, at 6 in the morning, a smell that makes every other argument about where to live irrelevant. But I mean where we are in the larger sense, too. It is 1947, 2 years since the end of the Second World War. The war ended in August 1945, first in Europe in May, then Japan in August, the specific sequence of endings that the war produced. The men came home. Some of them. Approximately 16 million Americans served. Approximately 400,000 did not come back. The ones who came back? They are here. In New York, in Chicago, in the small towns they left and returned to, in the new suburbs that are being built at a speed that is startling even to people who are used to things being built at speed. They are buying houses. They are going to college on the GI Bill. They are getting married at a rate that will produce in about 9 months the beginning of what someone will eventually call the baby boom, which is a terrific name for what is essentially a very large number of people deciding simultaneously that the world has survived and that it is acceptable to bring children into it. The economy? Extraordinary. Not ordinary extraordinary, genuinely extraordinary. America emerged from the Second World War as the only major industrial economy that was not significantly damaged by the fighting. Europe? Damaged. Japan? Damaged. The Soviet Union? Damaged. The United States? Not damaged. We were building weapons and ships and aircraft for 4 years, and now we are pointing that same industrial capacity at refrigerators and cars and washing machines and the specific domestic infrastructure of the life that everyone who spent 4 years at war is extremely eager to have. In 1947, American factories are producing more than at any point in history. In 1947, Americans are buying more than at any point in history. In 1947, there is a general sense, genuine, not manufactured, genuinely felt by the people experiencing it, that things are better than they were and getting better still. This is the world I am sitting in the middle of. New York City in 1947 has a population of approximately 7.8 million people. To put this in context that I find useful, the entire population of Sweden is 6.8 million people. New York City contains more people than Sweden, packed into an area of approximately 302 square miles, speaking, depending on which block you are on, perhaps 20 or 30 different languages, eating food from every country that has ever sent anyone to look for a better situation. The city is extraordinary. I say this not as civic boosterism. I am aware that New York City has problems which I will describe at length in various episodes of this channel, because ignoring them would be dishonest. But as a simple factual observation, There is nowhere else on Earth quite like this right now. The jazz clubs are open on 52nd Street, which is called Swing Street, and on a Tuesday night you can hear Charlie Parker play. And if you do not know who Charlie Parker is, I will have an entire episode about this, and by the end of it, you will understand why I consider hearing Charlie Parker play one of the most significant experiences of my life. The immigrant communities, still here, still specific, still the thing that makes New York what it is. The Jewish community on the Lower East Side, the Italian community in Little Italy, the Puerto Rican community in East Harlem, which is growing rapidly as Puerto Ricans come to New York in increasing numbers after the war. The Black community in Harlem, which is 4 miles from my apartment, and which I am embarrassed to say I visited for the first time at the age of 31, and which I will have much to say about. The specific texture of this city in 1947. There is no highway cutting through Lower Manhattan. That fight is still ahead, and Robert Moses, who is currently in the process of reshaping New York's geography by building roads everywhere, has not yet reached his most controversial ambitions. You can still walk the streets of Greenwich Village and Lower Manhattan in a relatively unbroken human-scale landscape. There are approximately 5 million cars in the city, and they produce a specific noise and smell and danger that is part of the texture of being here. But the car has not yet completely won. People still walk. People still take the subway. The New York City subway in 1947 carries approximately 2 billion rides per year. People still know their neighborhoods as foot-level places. The television. Just arriving. The Kozlowskis on my floor have one. 7-inch screen. The image is extraordinary and slightly absurd simultaneously. A small box in the living room, showing you the world at a remove that changes something about how the world feels when you receive it sitting down in your own apartment. I have an entire episode about this. The radio. Everywhere. Everyone has a radio. The radio is the nervous system of the culture right now. News arrives through it, music arrives through it. Franklin Roosevelt addressed the nation through it during the Depression and the war, and now it is simply part of the furniture of daily life, this box in the corner that talks. This is 1947. This is here. I want to give you a piece of scientific information that I find useful for understanding where we are. In 1947, the average American life expectancy at birth is approximately 66 years. In 1900, 47 years ago, it was approximately 47 years. In one generation, the average expected lifespan increased by 19 years. 19 years. To put this in context, if you improve the average lifespan by 19 years in one generation, you have accomplished something that took all of previous human history to accomplish in increments. The Roman Empire, at its peak, produced a life expectancy of approximately 35 to 40 years. Medieval Europe, approximately 30 to 40 years. The 19th century in developed countries, gradual improvements to the 40s and 50s, and then the 20th century, specifically the first half of it, and the life expectancy climbs from 47 to 66. What caused this? Not medicine in the dramatic sense, not surgeons performing miracles, not miracle drugs curing disease. Primarily, clean water and proper sewage. The specific public infrastructure of clean water and the removal of sewage from where people live, this single intervention, multiplied across cities and towns, produced more additional years of human life than almost anything else in history. And vaccines. Smallpox, diphtheria, tetanus, whooping cough. The specific technology of introducing a weakened pathogen into the body to produce immunity, developed through the 19th century and deployed at scale through the early 20th, essentially eliminated several diseases that had been killing children for millennia. And Penicillin. Alexander Fleming noticed in 1928 that a mold was killing bacteria in his petri dish. This is the actual story, not a metaphor. He literally forgot to cover a petri dish and went on holiday and came back to find mold growing in it and thought, "That is interesting. The mold is killing the bacteria." And from this specific moment of a scientist returning from vacation to find his experiment had been contaminated, we eventually got antibiotics, which changed the relationship between humanity and bacterial infection in a way that has saved hundreds of millions of lives. I have an entire episode about penicillin because I had strep throat in 1946 and received penicillin and was better in 3 days. And my grandmother died in 1901 from an infected wound that would have been completely curable with a drug that would not be available for another 40 years. This channel will have things like this: scientific information presented in the middle of what is also a personal story, because I think you can hold both simultaneously, and because I find that the science makes the story more interesting rather than less. I said I am an actress. Let me be more specific about what that means in 1947 in New York for a woman of 32. It means I have been doing this since I was 12 years old, when I appeared in a school production of something I have been trying to forget for 20 years, and when I discovered that standing in front of an audience and inhabiting a character was, I want to say, the most alive I had ever felt. Except that sounds like something from a bad novel. So let me say instead, it was the thing that made the most sense to me, in the way that certain things simply make sense, the way certain people know they are supposed to be doing what they are doing. It means I am represented by Harriet, who is my agent, who is very good at her job, who tells me things I do not always want to hear, and who I am certain is at this moment sitting in her office on West 45th Street, doing something that will result in my having to be somewhere I had not planned to be this week. This is what agents do. It means I have been in productions on Broadway and off-Broadway, and in several films that I will not discuss in detail in this episode because modesty is a virtue, and also because some of them were not very good, and I prefer to let time handle the assessment. It means I live alone on West 54th Street in an apartment that has a kitchen with a geranium in the window and a living room with a radio that I turn on in the morning before I fully decide to be awake, and a bedroom that contains the normal things a bedroom contains, plus a drawer with a letter in it from a man named Danny Reardon, who was my closest friend and who I lost in the Pacific in 1944, and whose letter I sometimes take out and sometimes don't, and either way I think about him. I am telling you this not because I think my personal history is the primary subject of this channel. I am telling you because this channel is narrated from inside a specific life, and the specific life has specific contents, and those contents shape what I look at and how I look at it. I look at things from the corner table at Manny's. The corner table at Manny's is who I am. I should tell you something unusual. I know certain things about the future, not because I am psychic. I am not psychic. I cannot tell you next week's racing results or who will win the next election, and if I could, I would absolutely use this ability for my own financial benefit and then stop worrying about the rent. I know the future because I have had access, through circumstances I will explain in a later series called The Device, to information from 2026. 77 years from now. Enough information to know certain things that, sitting here in 1947, I am not supposed to know yet. I know that the jazz clubs on 52nd Street, Swing Street, where I go to hear Charlie Parker, will close by 1950. The buildings will be purchased by developers and turned into offices. The music will move, but the rooms will be gone. I know that Charlie Parker will die in 1955 at the age of 34. This is one of the things I know that I wish I did not know. He is 27 years old right now. He is alive. He is playing on 52nd Street. I went last month and he was extraordinary. And I stood in the room and received the music and did not think about 1955. And now I am thinking about it, and I am going to stop thinking about it. I know that in 1969, 22 years from now, 2 human beings will walk on the moon. I will leave that sentence by itself for a moment, because it deserves to be by itself. 2 human beings will walk on the moon. The moon that is in the sky right now above West 54th Street, that has been in the sky above everything that has ever happened to human beings, that every person who has ever lived has looked at and wondered about. 2 people will walk on it. And I know other things. The atomic bomb, which exists, which was used 2 years ago, which fundamentally changed what kind of world we live in, will not be used again in the way it was used in Japan. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union that is beginning right now, the specific tension that is already building between the 2 superpowers who emerged from the war with their industrial capacity intact and with very different ideas about how society should be organized. This tension will last decades, but will not produce the nuclear exchange that everyone who understands what these weapons are fears it might produce. This is, I want to say clearly, genuinely good news. The world does not end in a nuclear war. I know this from the future, and I want to tell you right now because I think you should know. What the future shows me, more broadly, the world between 1947 and 2026 will do things that seem impossible from here, and will fail to do things that seem straightforward from here, and will change in ways that are sometimes better and sometimes worse, and sometimes simply different. And I will describe these things across this channel as accurately and honestly as I can. Let me show you what an episode of this channel is actually like. I will do a brief version right now. The subject? Refrigerators. In 1947, approximately 80% of American homes have a mechanical refrigerator. 20 years ago, 1927, approximately 8% had one. In 20 years, the refrigerator went from being a luxury item to being standard domestic equipment. This is one of the fastest adoption curves of any technology in American history, and it happened so quickly that most people who now have a refrigerator cannot quite remember not having one. Before the refrigerator, the icebox. The icebox was a wooden box, insulated, with a compartment for a block of ice and a compartment for food. The ice kept the food cool by proximity. When the ice melted, the food warmed. The iceman, Mr. Freenwood in my building, who came 3 times a week, delivered fresh ice blocks and removed the meltwater. Mr. Freenwood knew things about my building that buildings contain. He knew which apartments were occupied and which were not, by the weight of the ice he removed. He knew by the specific pattern of which families needed what size ice block, something about how they lived. He has not come to my building for 3 years. I have a refrigerator now. The refrigerator runs on electricity. The compressor cycles on and off. I can hear it, a low mechanical hum that has become the background sound of my kitchen, the way traffic is the background sound of the street. The interior stays cold continuously. I do not need to think about ice. What the refrigerator does, philosophically, and this is the part of the episode where I make a claim that might seem excessive, but which I believe, is this. The refrigerator is a machine for slowing time. Not literally. The clock runs at the same speed outside and inside the refrigerator. But the biological time of food, the time it takes for food to become not food, this time is dramatically slowed by cold. The milk I bought Thursday is still milk on Tuesday because the refrigerator is maintaining, continuously, a temperature at which the bacteria that would otherwise convert the milk to something else are operating at a fraction of their normal speed. Every refrigerator is saying, to every piece of food inside it, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. This is extraordinary, And I have had this machine in my kitchen for 4 years, and I have never once thought about it this way until I decided to make this channel, and I stood in front of my refrigerator at 2 in the morning, which I do sometimes at 2 in the morning, not because I am hungry, but because the refrigerator light is on and the food is there, and there is something about the cold, illuminated interior in the dark kitchen that requires investigation. And I thought, this is a machine for slowing time. And then I thought, I should tell someone about this. So, here we are. That is what this channel is like. A thing that seems ordinary. The specific attention it takes to see what is actually in it. And then, the larger thing it turns out to contain. First Times, which is the first series, I am going to take the things that arrived in my lifetime and look at them carefully. The television, the airplane, penicillin, the car, the supermarket with its 43 varieties of canned soup, the telephone system, jazz, Sinatra, film noir, Marlon Brando, advertising, Anne Frank's diary, Times Square at midnight, Harlem, the Brooklyn Bridge, Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn and Jackie Robinson and Lauren Bacall, the atomic bomb, the GI Bill, Dior's new look, and the geranium, which is where we end up somehow, which made complete sense when I got there. The Device, which is a later series. I received from someone in 2026 a package containing a smartphone. I use it for 4 months. I look up things I should not look up and refuse to look up things I am afraid to look up and find things I did not expect to find, including my own Wikipedia page, including the Wikipedia page of someone I love very much. The Device series contains the most serious episodes I have made, and also the episode where I try to explain what a selfie is using only the conceptual vocabulary available to a person in 1949, which is genuinely funny, even if the overall series is not. Food, which is a later series. I eat at 10 different places in New York and think about what the food carries. Goldstein's bread at 6 in the morning, which is the knowledge of 54 years of hands. The pastrami at Katz's Delicatessen, which is the technology of necessity elevated to art. The Sunday gravy in Little Italy. Soul food in Harlem. A bowl of soup in Chinatown, whose name I still don't know. The Automat. The Oyster Bar in Grand Central. Pushcart food on the Lower East Side. And sardines at my kitchen table alone at night, which is the most private and most mine meal in this entire series. The Objects, which is a current series. I am looking at the objects in my apartment and treating them with the same philosophical attention that they frankly deserve and that nobody is giving them. The refrigerator, which I have described above. The radio, which entered my living room in 1940 without asking and has never left. The vacuum cleaner, which is a machine for hiding dirt rather than removing it. The iron, which I use every Sunday evening to look like the kind of person who does not use an iron. Special episodes, which go in between the other series when I have something large to say about what changed between 1947 and 2026. I cover medicine. The Nobel Prize for the lobotomy was awarded in 1949, which tells you everything you need to know about where medicine is right now. Technology. The computer in 1949 weighs 27 tons and performs 5,000 operations per second. The smartphone from 2026 weighs 7 ounces and is many millions of times more powerful. These are technically the same category of object. The great errors of the 20th century, the things that the smartest and most confident people were most wrong about. Space, because 2 human beings are going to walk on the moon, and I cannot say this enough times. And language. What words existed in 1947 that don't exist in 2026? What words exist in 2026 that don't exist yet? And what the gap between them reveals. I want to give you some honest information about what this channel is like, so that you can make an informed decision about whether to continue. It will be funny sometimes. The vacuum cleaner is funny. The irony of ironing a blouse to look like you don't iron your own blouses is funny. The fact that the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1949 was given for the lobotomy is darkly funny in a way that requires a moment to process. I am not going to pretend to seriousness I don't feel, or to levity I don't have. When something is funny, I will say that it is funny. It will be sad sometimes. Danny's letter is in my drawer. I will talk about Danny. The jazz clubs on 52nd Street are going to close, and I know they're going to close, and I walk past them, and I know what they will become. And it hurts in the specific way that knowing the ending hurts when you are still inside the story. There are things about the 1940s that were genuinely terrible. The war, the bomb, the racial segregation that is a fact of American life right now, the specific limitations placed on women that I encounter regularly in my own profession, and I am not going to look away from them. It will be long. I am, constitutionally, a person who says too much. Every episode contains only part of what I wanted to say. The rest is in the notebook I am not looking at right now, or in the conversation I had with my friend Jack at the bar on Saturday, or in the 3 paragraphs I cut at the last minute because I could feel your attention beginning to drift. If I miss something, and I will miss things, constantly, because the 1940s is a large subject and I am one person, please tell me in the comments. Which brings me to the comments. I want there to be a conversation under every episode, not because I have done adequate research and am seeking validation, because I have done the research I have done, which is extensive but not exhaustive, and because you know things I don't know. If your grandmother lived in New York in the 1940s and her experience was different from what I describe, tell me. If you are from a part of the world I haven't mentioned, and you want to know what 1947 was like there, or you know what 1947 was like there, tell me. If you disagree with my interpretation of something, disagree. Disagreement, done well, is one of the most interesting things 2 people can do together. This channel is not a lecture. It is a conversation where I happen to be talking first. What I ask in return? Keep it civil. Keep it curious. Keep it kind. This is a channel about the ordinary things of the past, offered to you over coffee by someone who finds the ordinary inexhaustibly interesting, and who hopes you do too. It is not a channel for arguments. It is not a channel for cruelty. It is a channel for the specific pleasure of paying attention together. The ordinary things are inexhaustible. Come and look with me.